If you would, please forgive the road noise that you'll occasionally hear. We live near a highway, which is behind me in the view. You can't really see it from this angle, but maybe I'll show you sometime. And I wanted to talk about a few things. The main theme of which is that you don't have to live life the way that society, not that society says you have to, but the way that society intentionally and unintentionally encourages you to live life. Whenever a culture or whenever a society begins to operate, it develops a culture because of the place, because of the circumstances, because of the time, because of whatever. There's a billion factors. Whether they're an agrarian economy versus an industrial economy, there's a ton of factors that decide whether or not a society, or not whether or not, but that determine the type of culture a society is going to develop. You exist, your entire life exists within the context of that culture, whatever country you live in, whatever time in history you live in. If you're watching this, in the future, then I don't even know what society or what culture you live in. But we all live in different cultures, so we have a different cultural context that surrounds us, and we often adopt the beliefs and the behavior patterns that are the defaults of that culture, and we accept them as our own. Most of the time, this is a subconscious thing for the vast majority of people. Like your average, your normie that's just living life. People these days call them NPCs, non-playable characters. those people, they're not even thinking at all about why or how they're arriving at the conclusions that they're arriving at about how to live their daily lives. But obviously they're going about their daily lives and they're necessarily making decisions in order to do so. What I'm trying to get across here is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to accept the default behavior patterns of the culture in which you live, and you don't have to accept the beliefs and that culture formalizes, let's say. You can choose to live life outside of the lines of what's normal. And I'm not saying that in some hippy dippy way, like be your own person, be who you really truly are. Although I guess those things do have their place, but that's not my point. My point is, it is unnecessary and often not helpful to color within the lines that society provides for us. A very specific example, I'm sitting here in my yard. I'm 33 years old. I'm debt-free, and I own my home, and I own this yard that I'm sitting in. I own this chair that I'm sitting in, and that's how I choose to live my life. I choose to live my life debt-free. And the cultural norm is the exact opposite of that. The cultural norm is whenever you turn 25 and you have a somewhat staple job, you immediately go out and take out the largest loan you possibly can. And you get the biggest house that you possibly can at that amount, and then you hope that you're able to keep up with, home renovations and repairs, and maybe you can get some equity in the home, and then over time you can upgrade by selling that house and taking the equity and moving on to the next bigger house and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not even necessarily saying that that's evil or wrong. What I'm saying is that for a lot of people, myself included, that is such a stress-filled life that it's unlivable. I don't even know how people do that, how people sustain that for 40 years. There are lots of people, the norm in society is to go out and to do that for 40 years and to arrive at the end of your life and maybe have a house paid off? Maybe. A lot of people retire with a house payment. And how they're able to sustain a mortgage when they're only collecting Social Security as their only means of income, it's beyond me. I don't even know how the numbers work. As a matter of fact, I've looked at the numbers, and the numbers don't work, which I think is why society is in the state that it's in. I think it's why people are so miserable. I think it's at least a big reason for it, because people are being encouraged to make these decisions that are frankly just unwise. It's just unwise. It's overextending yourself, becoming a slave to a bank, and it's all unnecessary. The stuff that you buy with the money is not going to make you happy. It's not going to fill the void of purpose and fulfillment in your life. And yet, people go on and they sign the mortgages. Mortgage, the literal translation of mortgage is death contract, which means the only way you get down to this thing is if you die. Essentially, that's the point. That's the message of the name of the document. And yet people are signing them. They're looking at 40 years, or they're signing up for a 30-year mortgage, and they're going, you know what? That seems like the right choice. And if that's you, I'm not getting on to you. I'm not saying this out of spite or bitterness or anything like that. I'm saying it doesn't have to be that way. There is another option. For a lot of you that did choose that route, you might have some equity in your home. You might have the means to sell your home, and then you'll have a chunk of money. What I'm saying is, if you did that, you could have enough money to go out and build a simple life, and it can be beautiful and wonderful. You'll have to do the work yourself to build your house, probably. You have to learn a lot of things. Like when we bought our place, I'd never built anything in my life. I had helped my dad like build a lean-to one time, meaning like I was handing him boards and nails and stuff. I didn't do anything. I had never built anything until I built my house. And if I can do that, literally anybody can do that. If you're watching this, you're probably on YouTube. And that's what I used as my school to find out how to do all of the things that I've done now. I learned how to run the plumbing. I learned how to do all the electrical. I learned how to frame the house. I learned all of it. And it's not rocket science. If I can do it, you can do it. But you do have to commit yourself to the idea. You have to be willing to say, this is worth the sacrifice of the time that you could have spent at work, the time that you could spend with your family in exchange for a lifetime, essentially, of freedom. That was the calculation that I did. I looked at, honestly, the thing that got me running down this rabbit hole was when I started looking into Bitcoin. It made me, I'm the kind of person who studies things whenever I come across something new. I want to really understand them before I interact with them. And so for Bitcoin, I thought that's just a bunch of mouth breather nerds who still live in their mom's basements. Then there's no way this is real. You can't just make up money. Well, then I started looking into money and the history of money, and I found out that the money that we use on a daily basis is literally just made up. It's an absolute fiction. It's a work of fiction. For anybody interested in that topic, you should start with The Creature from Jekyll Island to learn more about that topic. But that course of action of looking into money taught me a lot of things. And one of the main things it taught me was that people in this country, the United States of America, spend a huge portion of their take-home income on the place that they live, their apartment, whether they rent or purchase. A huge portion of their paycheck each month goes to where they live. And I thought, man, if I can figure that one piece of the puzzle out, if I can figure out that one thing, then that's sort of a lead domino that will alleviate a massive amount of stress and give me options in the future. Because if I don't have to think about a $2,500 a month mortgage payment, and the next guy does, I have an advantage. I don't have that stress in my life. And I am the kind of person who, I'm sort of allergic to being tied down. I value freedom massively. And so that idea was very attractive to me. And so I started looking into, okay, how in the world can I do this? And we were able to financially figure out a way to make it happen. And I'll go into that story in detail if anybody's actually interested in it, but it involves Bitcoin and having a regular 9-to-5 job and all the stuff that normal people do. We just made different decisions about what we did with the money. We took the money, we found the cheapest land we could possibly find, and I mean, honestly, it came with a great view. This is the view. This is the cheapest land we found. And this is the view that we got, because it's land that nobody wanted. So you have to look at things outside the box. You have to be willing to consider the options that other people say are not an option. And if you will do that, you can have an incredible life very affordably. Our house in total cost, on the day that we moved in, cost just under $14,000. I'm going to say that one more time. My home, on the day that I moved in, had only cost me about $14,000, just under $14,000. That is a number that almost no one can hold a candle to. And the reason is because they don't do the work of building the home. They aren't the people that are hammering the nails, that are screwing in the screws, that are cutting the 2x4s, that are putting up the sheet metal, that are installing the windows. And I was that person. I mixed every pound of concrete in my floor by hand in a wheelbarrow. And when you're willing to go that far, you can get an extraordinary result. You can get the extraordinary result of total freedom, of not having a payment on your house. Now, bear in mind, my house isn't like beautiful or anything. It's the first thing I ever built, so it's not like a work of art or anything. But it is warm in the winter, and it's cool in the summer. As a matter of fact, it's too cool a lot of the time, because our mini split really cools it down so much that it's like kind of unbearable. And that, the lifestyle that has afforded us at the level of income that we have is incredible. It has given us so much freedom. We travel down to see my in-laws in Texas whenever we want. Like, as long as there's not something holding us back from doing it, we typically have the finances to do it. And when I say that, I'm not saying like, because we have just oodles of money sitting around. That's not the point. The point is we don't have lots of money sitting around. We do not. We don't have a lot of money. But my point is, because of the lifestyle that we've chosen, we do not need it. We don't need the money. The money is unnecessary because we have intentionally made decisions that have made it so. So I guess I want to encourage people that you can actually have a life of freedom. Social media right now is full of people that are just like doom and gloom, constantly talking about how it's over, there's no way anybody in Gen Z's ever going to be able to buy a house and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? That's not true. It's just not true. The truth is that this Goldilocks period of human history and of American history is over. There was a little Goldilocks phase where the average guy with a family of whatever, 4, on a single income could buy a moderately sized home, a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot house on a single income and pay it off in a decade. That Goldilocks phase of like everything just being absolutely idyllic, that is over. But what's not over is the dream. The American dream, which I don't know if it should be called the American dream. It's really like the dream of the common man. To be able to own the land that you're standing on, own the land that you live on, build the home with your own hands that your family lives in. That dream is not dead. I'm proof of that. My life is proof of that. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way. I'm not saying that to be like, look at us. That's not my point. My point is, you can do this too. Anybody can do this. I got another interesting fact. We live in the state of Arkansas, and I just found out about something called the Homestead Act. As of next year, my property taxes for my home, for our property, are going to be $1.34. I'm going to say that again. My property taxes next year, total for my property, $1.34. When I got the email from the assessor's office, I literally couldn't believe it. And all I had to do was fill out a piece of paper. But it's those pieces of information, and it's a little bit of action, you have to have a little bit of motivation to push yourself over the hump and find a way to make something like this happen. But it can happen. You can do it. You just have to choose to. So I just wanted to hop on here and say that. I'm going to have a series of other videos that I hop on here and make. I want to make more videos like this, so if there's any questions that occur to your mind, I would really appreciate you asking them in the comments, just so that I can have things that I'm responding to, rather than having to sit here and pontificate and just hold forth about, my property and whatever thoughts come to my mind. That's a lot harder than if someone's asking you a question, you're just responding to it. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.